Start thinking long term. It doesn't mean it has to be set in stone, but really think about what you want long term, the reasons why, and then reflect that onto what you're doing day to day. Because the things that you do today, from your habits to maybe a split second decision where you give in to peer pressure, can affect you for the rest of your life. So think long term and then make sure that you're also purposeful and intentional with the decisions you're making each day. So,
The person we choose to marry is one of the most important decisions we'll ever make in our lives. And so, as women, I would say I was going to talk about the modeling, so I won't repeat what This Is Inaz said. But we as women have to model and lead by example. We all need to see what we want to be legacy. And so if we want our women to make our girls to make good decisions and good choices in who they select as a husband, we've got to model and lead with the characteristics, the morals, the ethics. People hear what you say, but they watch what you do.
I would say I agree with Hank that we need to become the
I
best
can't
version.
hear you, big dog.
I say I agree with Hank. I think we need to become the best versions of ourselves that we can become. And part of that is learning some skills like de-escalation, conflict resolution, and listening. Um, when you're able to do that, you can avoid a lot of issues because a lot of the problems people have is things get lost in translation and people hear things through their heart and not through their ears. And if you can validate what somebody else saying, like I know at the beginning when we was talking about he divorce, the man needed empathy, and then we could move to discussing what XYZ. But with anybody, they also need empathy when they're trying to express something. So we hear them, and then we could move forward trying to get to a resolution we both can agree on. Because if I get shot and you get cut, I might feel like my gunshot ain't as bad as your cut, but I'm entitled to feel that way. And you might feel that the paper cut is worse than my gunshot. You entitled to feel that way. Subjectively, they looking at it from the outside looking in, you would say it's no way, but it is a way because that's how that person feel and it's true to them. But it don't make it true to everyone else. So if we could start from there and then come to a point where we can see eye to eye, that make it a whole lot easier. And then for a young man, once you do that, I wouldn't advise them to get married before 25. I think
Mm.
experience life. You need to know what type of women you want or what type of woman you want, so you can pick her out, and then really really what you get into. So you're not having that damn I should have waited, or damn I didn't know this type of woman existed. I didn't know this type of experience was possible. Because a lot of the horror stories I hear, I'm like, damn, that's fucked up. But I can imagine how they got to that point because they didn't have the experience. They didn't know what to look for. They didn't know what not to look for. Yeah, you got to experience life, big dog.
I'll go real quick. I want to second what Enoch said, but also too, this is something I tell my clients. So for young women, even if they're in high school, start thinking long term. It doesn't mean it has to be set in stone, but really think about what you want long term, the reasons why, and then reflect that onto what you're doing day to day. Because the things that you do today, from your habits to maybe a split second decision where you give in to peer pressure, can affect you for the rest of your life. So think long term and then make sure that you're also purposeful and intentional with the decisions you're making each day. So
Anybody else need to give their point? I wanted to I did ask a few successful men, because one person made a good point in the chat, and then I'm going to the super chat real fast and we be out. I feel like you should get married in your 30s, and this was the advice that he gave, because I asked, I was like, do you think that you are too young to get married? And even though he's divorced now, he's like, I have no regrets. He said because he feels that he's as successful as he is because he focused on one woman. He didn't have all of that noise, and he is for sure that wouldn't have happened had he been in the streets doing everything else. So he has no, even though it led to a divorce, he absolutely does not have any regrets as it relates to that. And he's a pretty successful guy. So real fast, I have a super chat right here. Mr. JB again.
JB.
Whoop, whoop.
Hey. I'm very pro marriage. Given the system we live in, though, I believe a man should get married if he has a specific goal.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean. Ooh. Girl, y'all know I don't be know what I'm doing. Go ahead. Sorry.
He should get married. I believe a man should get married if he has a specific goal, purpose, and plan that requires marriage, not to live a Disney fairy tale. I'm gonna be honest. I think most men have more realistic like expectations in marriage than women do. And a case in point, like I remember getting so upset like with my husband about stuff like early on in our marriage, and he just used to be like, "Everything for you is a 10. It's just not that big of a deal for
Women
me."
are emotional creatures.
Yeah, and I'm like, "What do you mean? How
I
could
mean,
you
my
not be
emotions were from
upset?"
10 to 1 tonight. It was like,
Yeah.
oh,
And he's like, I just have it. I know we're gonna have ups and downs. So when the downs happen, I know the ups are coming. So I'm not tripping. You like ready to like, I just don't think this is working, and I felt like that, but at the end of the day, I think it's because he had the more level-mindedness in the relationship when it came to the ebbs and flows that kind of was the anchor to the marriage, which, then I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. Because once we got through it, it was like, oh, okay, that really wasn't that big of a deal. So,
Can I build on
So,
that point? Well, just real quick, I just want to say this. Um, as men, we got to remember we set the trend for how things go in a relationship, right? So how we engage each other. She was just describing how she was on an emotional roller coaster and he was stable. That stability provides the space in which you guys can communicate and you don't have to fight it and do all these extra things. That's all.
facts.
I love that. But to the commenter, and Shane, maybe you can post if he responds, but I do have a question. Um, what goal or purpose would you have as a man that would not include marriage for your life? Like I'm just curious, right? Because to me, when it comes to community, when it comes to legacy, when it comes to all of these things,
just growing old, companionship. When you want somebody to go through life with, because there's going to be times when it's going to
yes,
get
ma'am.
hard. And
Yes.
you're going to
And
need somebody
so
to speak for you, somebody to be there beside you. Because we're thinking that we're going to be this age forever. When you get older, it's a whole nother set of issues that come along with that.
so
And you
I,
want
I agree with that. I agree with that, but I think that could possibly be our perspective as women. So I'm curious from a gentleman what that could possibly look like for you to have a goal or a purpose where marriage would not be included.
to say they got a dog.
Like relationship wise or like business wise,
So,
like
so the commenter said that a man should not get married unless there is a purpose or a goal in which marriage fits into, right? And so as a woman, marriage fits into all of it. So I'm curious from either the commenter's perspective or a man's perspective, what goal or purpose could you possibly have where marriage would not be included?
uh, my college degree.
okay, baby, you're so cool.
You said obtaining a college degree.
Yes.
Uh, well, I think when you have a college degree, that assists in marriage in terms of starting off and making more money that you would need to take care of a family, right?
No, not necessarily. You can
Oh,
So
get
But
a
it
trade
didn't
and
last.
make just as much or more.
But
I
getting a
personally,
college degree doesn't last a lifetime, though, right? There's still time to attain a college degree and
But when
fulfill
you
marriage purpose.
but when you get married, it's a lot harder because your time is you don't have that as much time as you would if you were single. Because
Right.
now you're not focused up on yourself anymore. It's not about you anymore. It's about your spouse.
So I
You
guess
know,
what the question was is what would your life
was what can we obtain that we could do that without being married? So to me, you can obtain your college degree without being married, or as far as an individual goal that wouldn't include marriage. So that's just my
Yeah,
opinion.
I think it might be easier to set up a career without being married because like when I was hooping, all of that traveling, that was a strain on the relationship. And all them hours that you might be away building a business, that could also be a strain. Because, like Coach K, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of like the 90s and 2000s white couples, divorce was a real big thing, right? And the according to Eminem music, I don't know, but according to that, divorce was a big thing, and the kids were complaining that their parents tried to buy them everything but weren't there for them, so they missed out on a whole lot. I don't want us to move into that era of making that similar mistake where money becomes our everything. You know what I'm saying?
So I love you guys' answers because I think it gave me the kind of perspective to that comment that I was missing, that disconnect, that a man has to reach a certain point in his life of reaching certain goals or a certain level of success in order to sustain a marriage is what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
And that's probably why more men who are of success are marrying and opposed to who are not.